Okay, let's bid Michael welcome.
As you see, my name is Michael. I'm managing director for a company called Desso for the Nordic countries. We don't have any courses or training, but my reason for being here is hopefully to inspire you why green growth, sustainable development, step further, people, planet and profit and so forth are very important, especially for the future and especially for you kind of getting ready to join any company. Desso, we are a Dutch company with factories in Holland and in Belgium. We produce carpet. We have carpet for offices, private houses. We have for hospital, hotels, cruise ships. We're the third largest manufacturer for the airline industry. We produce artificial grass for football pitches. So basically anything you can line the floor, we are doing. 8 years ago, we were, I think it's all of my quotes here. 8 years ago, we were a very conservative company, 8 years of experience. And we kind of had to take a different approach because the world is changing. We were entering a financial crisis and we need to make a difference compared to other companies. So we changed our vision, looking at we're spending 90% of our time indoor, and what can we do to kind of help and improve indoor climate. Another thing was also, if you take the next one, that we started to kind of, we were inspired by something called Cradle to Cradle. I will come back to that in a few seconds, but does anyone know what Cradle to Cradle means except from the actual words? Yeah? Ah, okay. Right. No worries.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So the cradle to cradle concept is that waste should be seen as a resource, and so a product after its use should be either recyclable or reusable or somehow otherwise. Material value should be captured in the process.
Really nice to hear that someone knows. 2 years ago, I had no clue what it was before I joined Desso. I've been working with sustainable development like everybody else. What we then did in changing this, we also had to change our design strategy, our whole way of working. We needed to implement this into the business, inspire our employees. When our top management came up with this idea, everybody said, "You're idiots, it's not possible." Our design director was about to resign, our manufacturing director, the same thing. But they kept pushing, and today everybody is really living and breathing with this concept. What you have heard about a lot is something called eco-efficiency. Eco-efficiency, that's about minimizing our footprint. That's about minimizing the CO2 emission. That's about using less energy. That's about using green energy. We should not drive as much. We should consume less, and so forth. That's all about kind of being less bad. The important thing is being less bad is not being good, because a lot of people think that. Check. Copenhagen came up that they wants to be the first CO2 neutral city. It's totally impossible because there would be no people, no animals and so forth. So it is not possible. And they are far from there, and it will most likely never happen. A lot of other things is going on in regards to CO2. That's really positive, and everyone is working in the same direction. But again, it's about being less bad. As John Cage here have said, he can't understand why people are frightened of new ideas. He's more afraid of the old ideas. And here's an example of an old idea, and that's waste. Waste and resources. If we look at, we are 6.5 billion people on Earth now, or consumers. It's growing by 200,000 on a monthly basis. And if we look at Asia, especially India, Pakistan and China, if they, and not if, but when they start to get to the same level of living as we are, then we will more than almost double the number of middle-class consumers globally, which means we will have no resources, we will have a huge waste problem. In Scandinavia, we are burning our waste and using it for heating. In other places, also in Europe, it goes to landfill. There's a few things in Denmark still we have to go to landfill because we can't burn it. And as the municipalities normally say, it normally costs a mayor to accept having a landfill dump site in a commune or municipality. So it's really a huge problem. Positively is that Ida Auken, our Minister of Environment, came out in regards to the Global Green Growth Forum a month ago and came up with a strategy, a zero waste strategy for Copenhagen. And that is kind of the way to go. Yes, please. Yeah. What we are looking at, and cradle to cradle, today everybody is producing, we're using it, and then we put it to waste, burn it or landfill. That's kind of the whole way of thinking on what we are doing. The problem here is that raw material is ending up being burned, and at some point we will run out of raw material. Everybody speaks about the oil crisis. Oil, in regards to energy, will be solved. But oil as a raw material, if that would not exist, if we continue as we do today, 70 years from now there will be no more oil, meaning no plastic. And if we look at our mobiles, PC, laptops, TVs, whatever, everything is made of plastic. So we really need to cherish these raw materials. So what we have to do is go to a circular economy, where, as you correctly said, that waste equals food for other products. Yes. Michael Braungart, a German chemist, and Bill McDonough, which is an American architect, came up and said that we need to do something about them, and they are the founders of cradle-to-cradle philosophy. And that is designing products, which in the design phase is designed so they can actually be disassembled and reused. Yeah. Why cradle-to-cradle? Of course, it's a good, positive initiative. It's good for people, it's good for nature. In our case, it's good for indoor quality, air quality especially. Waste becomes food for other products, we reduce raw material. But another thing, and that's kind of what we are really emphasizing, it's not only good for people, planet and profit, but it's also a good business opportunity. Desso, 8 years ago, we had a market share in Europe of 10%. We all know there has been a financial crisis, and still is, almost in Denmark. Denmark is still struggling, and I know it's not easy to find a job either. We managed in those 8-year period to increase our market share from 10 to 27% and quadruple our profit, even though we have done huge investments. And that's because this is, for a lot of companies today, becoming very interesting. I will come back to a little later, kind of where and why it's also interesting for you. When we talk cradle to cradle and circular economy, you might hear and read about circular economy. Circular economy and cradle to cradle are the same thing. What we normally say is that it's circular economy powered by cradle to cradle. And when we talk about the circular economy, then it's eco-effectiveness. Because if you talk about cradle to cradle, it needs to be produced on renewable energy. It needs to be toxic free. It needs to be designed in the design phase so they can be disassembled for reuse. And it needs to be made out of post-consumer material, which means that its materials have been another product in its past life. Yeah. There are two different ways of thinking about circular economy. There's a technical cycle and there's a biological cycle. The technical cycle, that's where we are as a carpet manufacturer. But the biological cycle is, if you look at the clothing industry, it could be, and I know they're already producing t-shirts. When you're done with it, you just throw it in the nature, and it, after within 1 year, it's automatically composed into nature. Puma have produced running shoes, which after the use, you just throw it in nature, and it automatically goes back to nature. So that's another way of thinking. If you look at the technical cycle, that's where a lot of people think recycling is circular economy. It's not. Recycling is very often downcycling. That means a product is collected and reused once. That's not recycling, that's downcycling. That's a huge difference. A lot of people think PET bottles, you know, these plastic water bottles, becomes new plastic bottles. They don't, because you can't reuse it for plastic bottles. So that often go into other industries and often downcycle. So that's really an important thing to kind of separate the two things. What we also have done now, we have produced all the products so they can be disassembled and taken back and reused, but we also have to have a take-back system. We are involved in a lot of different projects with other industries. The textile industry, clothing industry are really focused on that because that is the world's huge and biggest negative impact on water usage. To dye 1 kilo of cotton takes 150 liters of water. And the downside or the terrible problem is that cotton is often produced in areas where water is actually a problem. It's not in Norway where they have enough. It's typically in India and other places where there's not enough water. So that's one thing, and I know when I was together with Sasha and Nike and IKEA, that they're looking at techniques how we can dye cotton without water and so forth. So the whole process is very important. The textile industry are also looking at, in the Nordics, at a common approach, how can we start taking back textile? And to begin with, they started with a take-back system. And as I said and others said, hey guys, you need to stop because you need to know what you're taking back. Because Marks and Spencer in the UK had a fantastic take-back program, and then they ended up with, can't remember, I think it was 70,000 tons of clothes which they could not recycle because they started with the take-backs. You always have to start from the beginning and find out what are you actually producing. Then when it is taken back, then you need to have part of the factory that can disassemble it and produces into new products. Or you need to have some suppliers which can take your products and reuse them. What we do is we take products back. We take any product back. It doesn't have to be ours. We take from all of our competitors as well. And as long as it doesn't contain PVC, because that we can handle. And then we recycle what can be recycled. Our products are the only one which can be recycled over and over again. Our competitors, we have to downcycle because it's not designed for recycling. But what we also do is we're also using PET bottles for our backing. We are now changing some of our virgin material into waste from other manufacturers to kind of really have closed the loop. And all of this is not only a fantastic story, for us it's a good business opportunity. But I joined Desso 2 years ago, and when I had my first job interview, they gave me a book by Michael Aastrup called Cradle to Cradle, and I pretended I knew what they were talking about. I had no clue. My girlfriend actually read it before me, and she called me and said, I think you really should read this because it's kind of interesting. So I did, and I ended up working for the company. And what I then found out afterwards is that this is really important. I'm not an activist, but I have kind of become, because it's really now for me, I've gotten so deep down that I think about it in anything I do. And this is also why I met Sasha at another event, because that we are thinking about this. And then because I got to know more and more, I also are getting dragged into different project groups, and that's where I found out why this is so important. If you look at any larger industry, they all have a sustainable policy. But what they all are changing into is to have a kind of a circular policy. Everybody's looking at waste. It's on the top 8 agenda from the Nordic ministers in their policy they came out with 3 months ago. And everybody is looking at circular economy, green growth, sustainable development as a part of their business, as a part of their business plan. And which is why that if you are handling waste, or if you are in purchasing, or if you're in design, or if you go to study for an architect or designer or whatever you're doing, this is a part of it. And that's why, if you really want to make a difference, when you go out there, the green growth agenda is and has become one of the top criteria for anyone. I work a lot together with the environmental ministry and some of the regions. Trying to translate these Danish. The capital of Copenhagen region, south of Zealand, south of Jutland, and region Mid-Jutland. All of them are also working on this. If you go to municipalities, that's what we're working on right now, that all the municipalities, in their strategy, when they buy stuff, today they're kind of working in silos. They have a purchasing department which looks at what we are buying, cheapest price possible, we don't care about anything else. And then they buy it, then there's someone using it over a period of time and kind of have their operational budget. And when they're done, they say, okay, get rid of it, and then there's another department who then gets rid of it and pay for it normally. What we are doing now is trying to get all of them to work together. So if you're handling waste in a municipality, or if you are just working there using the goods they're buying, or if you're actually buying it, you really need to work together, because everybody needs to know what they're using, how they're using it, and what should it end up being after we're done with it. Yeah? I'm taking a little more time because I heard we have...
Don't worry.
What we also found out when we started doing this is that we have to really kind of throw away our old way of thinking. We have to rethink the way we make things. We also found out that using Cradle to Cradle, we actually really have boosted our innovation. It could also be boosting your career. Yes. We came up with a product from our design department. Previously in our design department, there's 15 people. It were designers. But with this new way of thinking, we had to find other people than designers, because we needed to have people who could think out of the box. We needed to have people who had a technical background and an engineer and stuff like that, because a carpet should not just be something that was nice to look at. It should certainly be something that had a functionality. And one of the things is we have now a carpet that actually cleans the air. And again, if you speak about Maersk have bought 30,000 square meters so far in Denmark, are buying now this product only globally, because it cleans the air, it's Cradle to Cradle. Maersk have also decided to become a Cradle to Cradle company and are producing containers according to Cradle to Cradle philosophy, and are actually looking at their ships in regards to what happens when we are done with it. Because normally it goes to India, Pakistan, ends up on a beach and pollute the whole area, and that's not good enough. So they have really started the circular economy, not only in their own business but also in their purchasing strategy. We also know we work together with World Health Organization, where they always identify what are the general problems globally. Before it was air, that's dust. Dust is actually in the Western world the biggest impact for child death. Another thing is sound. Sound for an office environment is the main impact on stress-related sickness. And that's why we started thinking about what can we do about that. So we have now developed a product which can kind of be added to reduce acoustics and sound. It's made out of PET bottles. Again, the whole kind of philosophy, we need to think about what products we use. And by that we actually can reduce sound. Then we heard about light. In our part of the world, or we go a little further north, we don't have a lot of lights this time of year. And we all know what happens when the sun is shining. Guys like it because girls have less clothes on, but we also know that we actually feel space. So people are smiling and birds are singing. So light is good for us. So what can we do to increase light in a room? We started to think about that. We actually found out, if we talked about light reflection value in the floor, we could also reduce the energy consumption of a building by up to 10%. Yes. And the latest one, which we are launching 1st of January, is really what we think is the sexiest product. It's a partnership with Philips. Philips is also a Cradle to Cradle company, also looking at that they can take their LED lights back and reuse it. By this whole Cradle to Cradle, we needed to invent a new backing. We suddenly found out if we change the composition a little, it becomes transparent. And our design department again thought, what can we use that for? So, and what we can do now is that we can install Philips LED light on the floor, install a standard carpet on top of it, and use the floor as a projector, guidance, signage, safety regulations in hotels. We are in dialogue with the Oscars in the US that the red carpet is actually a white carpet, which is lit red by LED lights underneath the carpet. And Philips have small sensors which they can put on the dresses of the actresses. So the carpet register. If they have a yellow dress, then the carpet changes color when they walk. So it's really, really cool. It costs a shitload of money. So now we talk about it, and people say wow, and when they start getting quiet, say, don't go there. But again, it's all powered by Cradle. And it's all powered by new way of thinking, new way of designing things. And I know I've spoken with Danish Design Center, Danish Design School, and they are also looking at that. We are also in dialogue with several universities, both in Sweden and in Denmark, because today, circular economy and cradle to cradle, if it's a part of the pensum, curriculum, thank you, it's very, very little. And they want to boost that and increase that. And we do in the UK, we work together with several of the large universities, where we go in as kind of a case study, where we provide all the information for people to really work with this. And we are hoping during next year we can do that as well with the Danish universities. Yep. I think that was that. Normally it takes an hour, and I shortened it down. If there are any questions, feel free to ask now. I'm also here during the evening, so you can also approach me later. No questions.
Just said it all.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. I'm also good in asking questions to myself and then answering back to the other one.
Yeah. Okay, I got a question for you. So, how big is Desso? I mean, you say you're in different countries. So, what kind of people are you looking for in terms of these guys? So, what kind of qualities?
We are a global company. Main focus on Europe still, because it's still our kind of our home market. We have also so if we look outside Europe, it's sales channels and customer support on that side. We looked at if we should have a factory in China, like a lot of companies do, but our business is not production is not kind of manpower heavy. It's more high quality technology which costs the same regardless of where we put it, and we will lose control to put it in China. So we kept it in Europe. What type of people we have in Europe? We have a lot of salespeople, fortunately, and then we are looking often for kind of internal people, and that goes for if it's marketing, if it's design, if it can be purchasing, it can be in regards to cradle. We have a huge department only working with this, and of course we have our production as well. And we do kind of, being a global company, we have all nationalities. Company language is English, so we have a lot of people working in different countries not speaking the local language, because it doesn't really matter. The only thing, of course, if you work in Jutland and you need to go talk to someone, it's normally good to speak Danish. Sorry, Cole. Yeah.
More questions? Yeah.
I have a little question. I'm not sure you talked about your own background, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, could you tell a little about yourself?
Yeah.
I mean, are you married? This is what you say in language. You go to language school, right? You sit on a chair with a lot of like children, and then you're being asked, "Are you married?
So it's not
how many kids do you have?" Not AA style, but it's, I mean, getting there.
So, yeah, I can say, and that might also be a small inspiration, my education is high school, that's it. I hated school, I'm sorry to say, but I really did. So I decided not to do. I went into sales instead, because it was easy money and a nice car before my friends and so forth. And that's where I started when I was 19 years old. And then I worked my ass off for a lot of years. And I've kind of grown within the companies I've been with. I've been 7 years selling copy machines, and then I went into the office furniture industry for 10 years. And then I went to a company called Interface, which is our biggest competitor. And they have a mission called Mission Zero, working very hard on being less bad. They are the global leader in regards to that, and it's very kind of in there, again, just confirms and that this is how to do business today in a modern company. And then I spent 6 years with a company called Regis, which is service officers. I know, by the way, they are always looking for people. Also right now in Copenhagen, by the way. So check their website called regis.com or regis.dk. And they take in a lot of people without education, also non-speaking Danish people. And they worked for 6 years, and then 2 years ago I was contacted by my old boss, now joined Desso as well, and said, Michael, I think you should come here, because it's a fantastic company, and I found out it is. So that's kind of my background.
Cool. More questions inspired by this story? Now you feel comfortable with asking more questions. You know the guy.
And I'm 188 and 84 kilos. Before you go to that.
Hi, I wanted to ask, you mentioned you have an innovation platform.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, is that like only company internal, or you also work together with like different companies or like different industries and think tanks and so forth?
Yeah, that we do. We have one very important part, which is the A&D, as an architect and design community. We have something called Circle of Architects, which we focus a lot on, work closely together with them to kind of get the input, what do the market want, and then we produce it instead of producing something and then have to convince the market that this is the right thing to buy. And then we have a lot of partners in regards to Cradle, and that goes from Sasha and her colleagues, but also it's IKEA, it's Philips, it's in Denmark, it's also a lot within the public sector in regards to both the municipalities, the regions, and also the ministry. We work partner with the textile clothing industry in regards to see what can we do to help them in regards to their kind of how can they solve their problems with taking back the clothes they're selling. So basically we work together with anyone who is interested in kind of how we can support. And there we don't go into sell carpet, we go in as an inspiration and with the knowledge we have, and then we kind of normally put in the people with the right knowledge to kind of support. So it's kind of any levels, the same with the universities. It's also something we do. Yeah.
More questions? Last question? Any questions? Feel free.
I have a question more. Sorry, you keep doing that, but I keep stopping you, Michael. So tell me, because yeah, that's it. So the theme for tonight is about how can you gear your career for the green agenda, and you just said it, that the green agenda is so important that all the big companies are thinking this direction, right?
Yeah.
So I'm asking, how can I, as a person who's looking for career options, how can I do this? How can I make because I might not be, with a science background, so I don't know anything about ecology or anything. But how can I do in order to go that way and to tap into that agenda if I'm not, a science like Einstein or something already?
There's a lot of people that I know who works with this within different industries, especially also the public sector, who have absolutely no background in regards to this. A lot of us is because it's still new, it's still booming, so it's a lot of it is self-taught. It's talking. I'm learning every single day. I'm together with people talking about this because you always get new inspiration, and that I used to build. If I look at some of our partners, they don't have kind of an education in this because you can't really get it. You can get some from Sasha, but so it's actually getting the knowledge, but also as I believe to believe in it and know something about it, and you can get a lot of amazing books, and if you want to know some of it, I can gladly provide you with it. And then use it in your approach. But also another thing, and that's what we do when we try to sell something to a company, we actually go on their webpage. We all know we should Google a little about the company, and then we can go and say that we know that you do X, Y, and Z. But what we do is we go in and we really thoroughly look at their sustainability policy. What is their corporate policy in regards to sustainable development, the environment, circular economy, but also, which also is a part of Cradle to Cradle, which I didn't say, but also circular economy is CSR, it's corporate social responsibility, which really also have grown in the Nordic countries, because we also have problems here in regards to both bribery and child labor and other things, just on a different level than other parts of the world. So if you really kind of look at that and start not looking at a corporate web page to see kind of what kind of products do they have, what is their core value, and that's it, but really go in and say, because if they have a policy about this, damn sure they have spent a lot of time on doing it recently. So for them it's very important. And the people you're talking to is often HR, and HR is very much indeed involved in that because it involves their employees. So HR is a huge driving force for any company in regards to the whole green growth, because it is called people, planet, profit. So go into that. I would 100% do that if I were to look for another job again. And then use it so you know about these things as well. And that would 100% you impress them, because a lot don't do that. It was a long talk. I have no idea if I answered your question.
Totally. So I think you can get rid of the Madonna microphone.
I will try again.
Yeah, now you can. Let's give a hand to Michael Aastrup.